Welcome back to the Shankly Sessions, the Liverpool podcast we bring you each and every week on the Dynamo Podcast Network. Head over to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button. Audio version show are available through Spotify. And if you'd like to contact the show, you'll get us on Twitter at Sessions Shankly or on Facebook and Instagram, the upper tier. This is your match reaction. West Ham 3, Liverpool 2. Our viewers will be a bit shocked to see. Normally I either do these on my own or I do them with Dino. But I thought I'd bring Darren on tonight because Darren predicted this. If you go back and look at our Premier League preview and everything, Darren said there could be a big shock on the cards at West Ham, and we did know it was going to be a difficult match. Thoughts, Darren?
Yeah, it was a tough day at the office for you, Niall, wasn't it? Really was from start to finish. I don't think West Ham let you settle at all and kind of got at you from the first word, from the word go, you know what I mean? That's the type of way, United should have been approaching the game a couple of weeks ago at Old Trafford, instead of going out and giving Liverpool all the respect in the world and allowing them to dictate the pace of play and stuff like that. West Ham were so dogged and they were in Liverpool's faces just every time somebody in a cream colour jersey got a touch the ball. There was a claret and blue on top of them, couple of big performances from West Ham, I have to say. Thought Declan Rice was super. I really did. Just goes about his business really quietly, but he's so effective. He won't be there for much longer. I don't think he'll be there past the summer. That's even if he gets through January. But I definitely think it'll be in the summertime. You'll see him head out of there. Because he's a serious big time footballer.
Assuming West Ham don't get top 4.
I think even with top 4, there's the vultures are kind of circling, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
I know, I'm sure Liverpool would love a player like that. I'm sure United would. I'm sure Chelsea would. I'm sure City would. Any of those big teams would look at this kid and just say, "Wow, he's so simple and he's so effective in everything he does. He's got a great engine." He's very, very good, and he wasn't the only one to put in a performance today as well, It
was all around the pitch, wasn't it? Really,
all around it was
outstanding. Cresswell was outstanding.
Cresswell is always fairly good offensively, but I thought defensively he was very good today to keep kind of Salah to a bare minimum type thing, And I thought Dawson did very well when he came on to replace Ogbonna. He really did, because he's not the quickest in the world and pace troubles him and stuff like that. But they were clever. They set deep enough that they didn't allow space in behind them for speed to get them caught out. It's David Moyes tactically making some good choices and stuff like that.
And the two boys we always talk about on our regular shows, Jared Bowen and Farnells, two outstanding players today as well. Absolutely brilliant,
Yeah. I heard. I don't know where I saw it earlier on that there was mutants that Bowen was on the Liverpool radar. And you kind of think that's a bit out of left field, and then all of a sudden you go, is it though? He's a very consistent performer. He scores, he assists, his work rate. He's the type of player that I think would do unbelievable under Klopp because he has that work rate, because he has that engine. And I think Klopp would give him a lot more. I think you'd see him add more goals and more assists if he ended up at Liverpool and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it was a tough day, definitely.
Yeah, I think what happens with these things is with Liverpool, I find anyway. And I mean, I suppose before we get into that, let's put it out there that West Ham and Moyes were very, very good today and value for their win. And hats off to David Moyes. We've said it a million times on these shows. He's doing an absolutely exceptional job with West Ham. So hats off to him first before we get into anything of the frailties of Liverpool today.
Yeah.
West Ham were outstanding. But I think when you look at it, I mean, we seem to slip up every time there's a door slightly open for us. So you've seen it in the Brentford game, you've seen it in the Brighton game, and then you see it in this game where we have an opportunity to either close the gap or make up the difference. And we just fall short. We just simply fall short. I'm looking at us at the moment, and I think there seems to be an emphasis on going out very quickly and trying to get a goal on the board very, very quickly, to the point where we're sacrificing maybe some parts of our structure. You see it with Trent, you see it with Robbo. And 9 times out of 10, we tend to get away with it because Matip is so good at covering, Van Dijk is so good at covering. But there are times when, you know, you get a break there that you just can't cover, you know, the strength of a Mikel Antonio, Jared Bowen, Fornells, you know. But I mean, we have to talk about, first of all, let's run down through the goals, first of all. Obviously, an OG from Alisson Becker, which was an absolute disaster start.
Yeah, it's a clanger, isn't it?
Absolutely. For a keeper of his strength and size and stature, he should be coming out, going through those players and absolutely just putting that away. And I'm not sure what he was trying to. I don't know whether he was trying to catch it or whether he was trying to fist it. I don't know what he was doing.
I think he got lost a little bit in what his job was, because he was so tied up with Mikel Antonio. And I mean, they've put Antonio there to cause a bit of trouble. And he kind of fell for the bait, and he got involved with Antonio, and he didn't really need to. I mean, that ball's inside the 6-yard box. He can come and take that quite easily, because at the top of its peak, he's got his arms over most lads. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's poor, but I think it's more of a lack of concentration than anything, you know. And early on in the game, it can be easy to happen if you haven't maybe had a great warm up, or if something's at you a little bit and you're just not right at it from the start, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Then we move on. Obviously, a sublime free kick from Trent Alexander-Arnold, which we know he has in his locker, with a little sneaky assist from Mo Salah as well, you know, which was kind of cool. But prior to that, we had something that gets my goat up, and it's not something I want to crib about. As I said, hats off to West Ham. But that tackle by Cresswell on Jordan Henderson, to me, is an all-day red, without a shadow of a doubt. He took him high at the knee, without a shadow of a doubt. And only an hour prior to that, we seen an Everton player getting sent off for a very similar thing, where he went through the ball, cut the player high at the knee, and got a straight red. So there's a bit of an inconsistency there. Now, I'm not going to dwell on it, but I think if you go in with your feet that high and catch a player at the side of his knee, you're endangering the player, and the rule of the law is that's a straight red.
Yeah, like I personally didn't think it was a red, and I know it's very easy to say as a United fan, and people go, "Oh, he's a United fan, he's not." You know, if it's red, I'm going to say it's red. Personally speaking, I didn't feel like it was red. I know I watched the game on Sky, and the commentators, Redknapp and Jack Wilshere, neither of them felt it was a red either. You know, it is awkward, it is clumsy. I think there's enough contact. You know, there's enough that he gets enough on the ball to, you know, I'm not saying there's not excessive force and he's in control of himself, but I think it's the contact he makes with the ball which saves him, you know, and that's where I'm kind of going. You know what I mean?
Again, I'm not being bitter about it, but I'm just saying, if you look at the consistency, if you go back and you look at the Everton game, the player who hit him high in the knee as well actually got the whole ball.
Absolutely.
And was given a straight red.
And here's the other thing we have to mention. VAR looked at both of those. So the Everton one was looked at by VAR, and they overturned the yellow and gave a red. So somebody somewhere, someone in Stockley Park was watching that game. Somebody else watched the Liverpool game, obviously, or maybe it was the same person, I don't know, and looked at that challenge and said, they've given the yellow. Is there anything else here? And they decided there's not enough in it for us to say it's in clear and obvious error. But I can absolutely understand how Liverpool fans will be A, annoyed with it, and B, you know, misunderstand the inconsistencies of things. Yeah. And that's, as football fans, that's what we want. You know, if I get a result, or if I get if I get something my way and you get something your way next week and they're the same, we're all right with that. But it's when you see Holgate go for what he's gone for, and then you see the West Ham boy not go for what he's gone for. You know, so it is annoying. I can't argue with that.
You're talking within an hour of each other, and it was like as if Stockley Park was balancing itself out. And I think that was a key. It was a key moment in the game as well, because obviously if Cresswell had went, it would have been probably a very different game. Now, I know we haven't always been brilliant at breaking down 10 men, and especially a team like West Ham that's so organised, very in the vein of Chelsea under Moyes as well. So there's no guarantees even against 10 men. But in balancing things out, do
you want to play against 10 or 11? You want to play against 10 all day long, I think, don't you? Yeah. So I get it. Absolutely. Yeah.
So then we move into the second half, and I just think I was looking at it, and there was just, I don't know what it was about it. We were just so penetrating. We were so flowing, but Jota never seemed in the game. Salah was kind of half in the game, but not in the game. Robbo, I thought, was very, very wasteful and very inconsistent. Ox, I thought, played really, really well, but tried and tried and tried. And one of the things I harp on about Ox as well is He's brilliant at doing three quarters. We talk about it like a Traore. He's brilliant at doing three quarters of it. But then when he gets to that moment when you have to lay it off or pass it or put it in, he falls apart. It just goes bad for him, you know.
And there's a decision making process with him there where I think a lot of the other Liverpool lads make much better decisions. I think at times it's the bad decision that kind of annoys Liverpool fans rather than maybe just the misplaced ball, because everyone's going to misplace a pass, especially when you're trying to be penetrating like that. But it's the decision making process, you know.
I think it's the brilliance of the build up and then the letdown of the final pass or whatever it is. You know what I mean? You're expecting him to do something as brilliant as what he does. Like, he can skip by 2 or 3 players and then suddenly just kick the ball into the turf. And you're there, you just can't understand it. I was surprised at the selection of Robbo today. I thought he might have kept Tsimikas in there, because Robbo had been struggling most of the season. I mean, I was talking to Ben earlier when we were watching the game, and I said, can you tell me a game this season where Robbo has stood out that you remember? And I know at times he's very consistent in what he does, so it doesn't always stand out. But I can't remember a game this season where he was absolutely brilliant. And he's been struggling a lot as well. And he was taken out. And I thought Tsimikas against Atletico the other night, I thought he was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant against a tough Atletico side. And I thought he had done enough to maintain a spot in this game, albeit if you wanted to bring Robbo on later on or something like that. But I thought Tsimikas had done enough to hold down his spot. And the reason I was thinking that as well is because his ball into the box is much better than Robbo's. His final ball in.
You see, I think going to West Ham, knowing how hostile it was going to be and knowing, you know, how difficult it was going to be, especially from a set piece point of view. I know Robbo's not a giant, but, you know, Tsimikas is quite diminutive, isn't he? He's quite small. And you wouldn't know whether he'd want to give up any more than what he was giving up to the West Ham boys.
But he was very powerful the other night against Atletico Madrid. If you look at his body positioning and everything else and all, he was absolutely brilliant in the way he held off Atletico players to let balls go out and stuff like that. No. So although he looks a little bit slight and he has put on a bit of size over the last 5 to 6 months as well and built himself up a little bit, he was very powerful against Atletico. And like, I just thought there was enough in him there. I thought there would have been enough there to actually maintain a spot and just see how it goes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I thought that final ball in where Robbo has been inconsistent this season, I thought Tsimikas would deliver a much better ball into the box. And lo and behold, that's kind of what happened with Robbo. It was just inconsistent all the time, these balls in and stuff like that, you know? So it was a kind of a struggle. But then we go into the second half anyway. We claw back in with 1-1. We're going in at half time, and you know, we could have been maybe 1 or 2 more up, maybe at half time, but also West Ham could have as well. Then we went to the second half, and I think we had a point blank one from Sadio Mane that Fabianski saved. They also hit the crossbar, which was quite even. But then they get a breakaway, and Fornell scores, and that's 2-1, which is tough as well. You know, you're talking about nearly into the 70th minute here. 20 minutes to go. So we're going to come out and ring the changes. So the changes come on. Kurt Zouma then gets a goal at the back stick, a header. Again, a very poorly defended ball that we should be dealing with and stuff like that. I don't know what was going on. It looked like Trent was ball watching it as it happened, but it looks like Alisson's position as well was poor. What was your thinking on the Zouma goal?
Yeah, so I suppose from a keeper's point of view, like the ball drops inside the 6-yard box. So there is a train of thought which says anything inside the 6-yard box is his. You know, but I also thought Trent was really poor for it. He's outside the width of the post. I feel like if he gets back inside the width of the post, maybe he cuts off the ball. You know what I mean? Or maybe even he makes it more difficult that Zouma has to try and put it somewhere else. Now listen, it's a great header. He takes it really, really well.
Yeah.
He's a big guy. You know, it's an athletic jump. He's put it in a good spot and stuff like that. The ball in was excellent. But listen, there's 2 or 3 of them there that you can look at and say, you know what, lads, you can cover yourself in glory here. And I thought, and listen, you know my thinking on Alexander-Arnold. I think offensively he's outstanding. I think look at the free kick. You know, if anybody else in the world scores that, you're going, wow, this is just right out of the top drawer. But I think he's causing himself problems and he's causing Liverpool big problems going back towards his own goal. You know, he misjudged the flight of one of the balls as well. I think Ben Rama took it in a stride and popped the ball across to Bowen, I think it might have been, and it was only Van Dijk came in with a really late block, because otherwise that could have been 2-1 as well. That was in the first half. Just coming up to half time, actually, it was about 49 minutes gone at that stage, and like I completely understand that this is how Klopp wants them to play, you know, but I don't imagine he wants, or he's looking for Trent to be that fragile and frail in his position and sense, and, you know, getting caught out so often. Like, you guys absolutely tore us apart at Old Trafford. But any kind of play we got, and the play we had very early on where Bruno missed the sitter, came down that left-hand side again. And I think David Moyes looked at that left-hand side, you know, and said, listen, we've a way into this game. And the way we have into this game is through Trent, you know. And I think teams and managers, and very good managers, have now started to go, you know what, this kid's a super footballer, but he maybe doesn't just dot all the I's and cross all the T's when he's defending. And maybe that's a way we can get in. You know, that diagonal ball can really hurt him at times, you know.
Yeah, and it's so difficult to go in on him, isn't it, really? Because if you look at this game here, he's after scoring a world-class free kick, and he's also after getting an assist for the Origi goal. And yet you still have to look at it. And as you said, and you always break it down really, really well, as you said, he's absolutely world-class offensively, but defensively, there's a lot of questions there. And as you said, it might be something in the way Klopp wants them to play or something like that. But I find at times in the offensive play that he gives us, Van Dijk and Matip and players like that are having to do a hell of a lot of work for him.
Yes.
And even at times you've seen Ox having to track back and cover for him and stuff like that and all. And I just think,
and listen, if that's part of the tactic that the defensive midfielder sits, and when he goes down the right hand side, the defensive midfielder slides into that right back position to give you cover, that's fine, no problem at all. Or if he drops into the back four and Matip slides across, no problem at all. But it just doesn't seem to be happening.
More often than not, that's not the case. Yeah, more often than not, you get that big gap on that side, and there's no one dropping into that position. Because you have Fabinho. Fabinho is playing quite central.
And that's where I suppose with the likes of Robertson, that maybe he's looking at Tsimikas and going, you know what, Tsimikas is a very offensive player, and maybe a little bit too similar to Alexander-Arnold, in a sense that he wants to bomb on, he wants to go by that last line, he wants to get balls into the box and stuff like that. Whereas if you've got two wing backs or full backs that are so offensive like that it can create, you know, not only an imbalance on one side, but then that can pass across to the opposite side as well. And all of a sudden your two centre backs are overran. And against that West Ham team, as you saw from the second goal, you didn't have that kind of space to give, you know. Like there wasn't a whole lot of room down the centre of the pitch, but because they timed everything so well and the pace they did in it, they were able to pick holes in that back four, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think it's always difficult with Trent, you know what I mean? Because like he's the scouser in our team, he's much loved. He is an outstanding footballer, there's no doubt about it. But it's just in those clutch moments. It's like as if he's either switched off or his awareness isn't there, or because he's thinking so offensively all the time, the defensive thoughts just don't come into his mind at times. As you said, if he had been just inside the post there, he would have been able to cut that out, which was basically the softest header Kurzuma will ever score, you know. But I just think on the day, I just think we were a little bit, I think we were kind of impatient in our way of doing things. And everything seemed to be a rush. Like I said to Ben, even watching the game, I couldn't believe how quick the first 45 minutes went in. It just seemed to go by in a blast. And it kind of felt like it was the way we were playing. Now, I know we're trying to play a lot quicker and we're trying to play a press game, but we're also trying to play a counter-attack game as well at the same time nearly, you know what I mean? And I think because West Ham are so organised with Moyes, what happens is, again, you see in Salah, he didn't get a whole lot of room. At times there was little touches and stuff like that, and he showed some flashes of the stuff that he's been doing and stuff like that. But I just think because they're so well organised, I think sometimes a more patient build-up where you have to draw them out, where you play it around and you force them to come out and open up the spaces to then go. when it's ready and it's there, I
It
think would
was
yield a better result, you know?
it was far too congested along that 18-yard line
Mm.
for, to see the likes of Salah maybe go by someone, drop his shoulder, come inside, go outside. It was jam-packed across that.
Mm.
And yeah, I do feel like, as well, that at times West Ham are happy enough to sit off and just say, well, we're going to give, if Liverpool are going to play in the counter-attack, they're going to play in the press, we're going to give them a certain amount of space up to a point, and if we win it back, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get it to Declan Rice. He's going to be our focal point in the middle there, and he's going to put balls down the channels. He's going to put balls down the middle, or they're going to drive at the Liverpool back four, because I found that they carry the ball quite a lot rather than playing balls into spaces and maybe Van Dijk and Matip hoovering up very quickly and stuff like that. They ran into the space, which then meant Liverpool had to step backwards. And as you go backwards like that, it actually creates a bit more space around you because you become kind of a moving target, So I thought tactically it was very good from West Ham and from David Moyes,
Yeah, he had definitely studied. Definitely the Brighton game without a shadow of a doubt. And definitely the United game. But I just thought with us having nearly 70% possession, I think we could be way cleverer in the way we do it. Like sometimes we come up against these teams, the likes of the Brightons and the likes of the Burnleys and the West Hams, who are actually West Ham's at a different level, really. But we come up against those teams sometimes, and they do that block of 2-4s. And we just get impatient when things don't come off. And then it's gung-ho, because we're trying to put that score line up there on the board. But I just noticed today, even in the build up to the goal, let's say, that we gave away, you know what I mean? The first goal, the OG after 4 minutes, even in those first 4 minutes, we were, there was seemed to be this massive rush to get a score on the board. Whereas I think when you're going up against a guy, go ahead.
There was no time, there was no settling in period.
Yeah.
Where we get a touch of the ball, we knock it square, we keep it, we find our shape, we find our formation, and we find our rhythm. It is very, very not hurried, but impatient at times.
Yeah.
And I suppose when the game went 3-1, my next thought was this next goal is the big one, because either West Ham kill the game off of 4-1, or Liverpool score, and we've got this ending where they're just throwing everything at it, And because Liverpool were so aggressive with trying to get that fifth goal, it did leave them short and loose at the back at times, and they were a little bit ragged. And you wouldn't have been surprised to see West Ham get the fourth, because I think that's something that we maybe saw last season in the Villa game. Was they tried so hard to get back into the game, and they pushed and probed.
Absolute explosion.
But just kept getting picked off because. The other team had players that were very comfortable at doing certain things.
Yeah, I just feel when you're up against a team as organised as West Ham, I think sometimes you have to turn around and take your time for the first 5 or 10 minutes, figure out what they're exactly trying to do, and then give the gaffer a bit of an information. Let Klopp have a look and see what's unfolding in front of him before you go 1-0 down. You know what I mean? And try and think a way around this. Try and figure out, okay, what's Moisey doing here? This is how we need to counteract this. What do we need to do? Do we need to have a target man up there? What else is happening? Where is the blocks? Do we need to tell Trent maybe sit a little bit more? Don't go gung-ho, this kind of thing, and try and evolve into the game a little bit rather than just going, right, boom, we want to put a goal on the board here. And we sacrifice this, that, and the other to do it, And then, of course, at the end, towards the end there, Mane had that great chance with the header. And at his level, you have to put that away to get the draw, don't you?
It's a tough chance, and I think it's only tough because of the way he goes with the head. I think he can volley that. I think he can maybe cushion volley it back into the far corner where it's come from, that type of thing. But I do also think that like you said I know Bobby wasn't playing today, and maybe you missed that focal point that if Firmino plays there for me, he ends up against the two centre backs, Obonga or Zuma and Dawson, and all of a sudden the boys then are kept busy, whereas I think when you've got three players like Jota, Mane and Salah, they're so similar that I think they're all at times very happy to drop off and come and get the ball and maybe go and face a defender up, Whereas, they're not going to park themselves up on that 18-yard line and start backing into like 2 6'3", 6'4" guys and hold the ball up and look for that little pass or ball around the corner, And I think something that was mentioned, I think it was Jack Wilshere actually after the game, said he's surprised that he and Liverpool fans haven't seen a little more of Divock Origi, because he's popped up with some vital goals for you guys. I think I've seen him play a League Cup game, couple of months ago, and he was comfortably the best player he's had on the pitch. So he has put in some good performances and he has scored some vital goals. But I just think when it gets to those big games, Klopp doesn't really trust him enough to put him into the.
He offers you something different. And the thing about it is, when you're looking at that game evolved today, you can see that Diogo Jota, he's not really in the game and he's been taken out of the game. So he's not really having an impact. But it shouldn't take you till 76 minutes to realise that you should be giving Origi more time then and realise, listen, we need to put a big lad in there who's going to put himself about with these guys. And I just, sometimes that's what I question at times. Sometimes the timing of Klopp's substitutions, and I think you hit something on the nail on the head there, whereas it's whether he has the confidence in these guys. But I mean, if you don't put them in, how are you going to know? If he's on the bench, he's on the bench. If you're not confident in him, what's he doing on the bench? And I mean,
I don't think it's necessary that, as you said, things weren't working. It's different if it looked like maybe you were getting a sniff, or maybe things were, going in in a more positive direction. But you were being unlucky or blah, blah, blah. You weren't really, and Jota was very, very anonymous for me.
Yeah, very cool.
So, I mean, even at half time, when that game's 1-1, you've got two choices. So you go out with the status quo and you see how it goes. Or you make that positive move at halftime. You say, Divock, I want you to come on. I want you to keep them two centre-backs busy, which should free up a little bit of space on either side for Mo or for Sadio, because all of a sudden they don't have that centre-back coming out to help the fullback.
And they're trying to deal with this big guy in the middle there. And they don't know how to handle him because he's awkward as hell.
He's awkward and he's aerially he's much better than Jota and stuff like that as well, So... Yeah, it's if I was a Liverpool fan, I'd certainly wanted to see him a bit earlier. But listen, we've talked about some of the decisions that have been made by managers. Obviously, United have another tough day at the office yesterday, and I've never seen a game of football where the biggest cheer in 90 minutes was the bringing on of a football player. The biggest cheer in Old Trafford yesterday when Donny came on, that's embarrassing. And Solskjaer is gone, and he's done that because of his lack of confidence in him. I feel like at times Klopp maybe doesn't have the confidence in the likes of Minamino and Origi and stuff like that.
It's interesting you say that, because I'm not even sure. With Klopp, I think it's a confidence thing, but yet he played him against AC Milan in the first game of the Champions League, and he plays him in the Carabao Cup. So there must be a certain level of confidence in him. I think when you talk about Solskjaer and Donny van de Beek, I don't think it's a confidence thing. I think Solskjaer has just decided, I didn't want this guy. He wasn't my signing, so fuck him, he can stay on the bench. And that's what I think it is with Solskjaer. I think it's slightly different,
Maybe, but I think, I think at times it's, especially on days like we've had recently, where maybe he feels like he's getting a bit closer to the edge of that cliff. He only seems to want to put his trust in certain players because maybe they're the tried and tested, whereas maybe guys along the way didn't always do the tried and tested, and that's where they got results from. Do you know what I mean? Maybe it was the change that they made. I feel like managers, certain managers could probably not gamble, but certainly calculate things a little bit differently and maybe roll the dice a little bit better at times,
Yeah, I definitely think with Divock Origi, and I've said it before, with Divock Origi, I think if you give him more time and you make him feel more part of the squad and that he is part of the process and stuff like that, I think you'll see a much better Divock Origi and we'll get a much better return off him. I think when you're throwing him in like this, if you're throwing him in like this, you're telling him you're not confident in him. How would you expect him to be confident in himself going out on the pitch? And I mean, in times when he's been thrown in, he has scored clutch goals. The one against Barcelona, the ones against Newcastle, the ones against Everton. The one he scored today, he took the goal very, very well.
Took the goal very, very well.
If he had a half an hour, it could be a very different game. And I think
absolutely.
That's something that Klopp needs to look at,
Yeah.
But listen, pleasure having you on, kind of as a neutral. But I thought I'd bring you on because I know you called it. So it's good to have you on. You called a good few results this weekend, in fairness.
Called a couple.
But this has been your West Ham versus Liverpool match reaction on the Dynamo Podcast Network from the Shankly sessions. Head over to YouTube, as always. Like, subscribe, share, smash it out of the park. If you want audio versions of the show, again, I don't know why you would, with these two handsome bastards on it. You'll get it on Spotify. And if you want to contact the show, of course, drop your comments into the episode. How did you feel about the game today? Another opportunity missed from the Reds. You can also get us on @SessionShankly on Twitter. And of course, you'll get us on Facebook and Instagram, the upper tier. Till next time, my friend.
Thanks very much for that.